Hey everyone, welcome to Judging for the Win. I'm Dave, and this is my daily ruling. Today is this month's patron pick. Thank you so much to all of you, I really appreciate it. The topic that was selected this month is proxies, and I think this one is going to be a really interesting episode because there's a lot of confusion surrounding this topic, in part because of how many different contexts the word proxy gets used in. There are also some potentially controversial aspects to this topic, so I'm looking forward to a lot of rational, well-reasoned discussion in the comments section. Ready? Let's get started. First off, I'd like to address the most prevalent usage of the term, at least if you do a search online for something like MTG proxy cards, this is what you're probably going to see come up the most. Some companies will print card designs on cardstock that's very similar in size, weight, and feel to the cardstock that Magic cards are printed on, and such cards are commonly referred to as proxies. While they may qualify as such under the normal English meaning of the word proxy in the sense of something that represents or stands for something else, these aren't proxies in the sense defined in Magic's policy documents. Some of my colleagues will vehemently dispute the term proxy should apply to these cards, citing this conflict with the official definition. That's fair enough, but I'll stop short of the stance taken by the most extreme of this faction, who label all such cards as counterfeits, since to me that's also kind of problematic. Counterfeiting has a connotation that you're intending to defraud or deceive somebody, so without knowing the card's intended usage, it's hard for me to apply that term. Definitely if you're trying to sell them to a dealer or trade them to another player, they're counterfeits. But if you're using them to avoid wear and tear on an expensive card that you own, and everybody else at your kitchen table game is okay with that, well, I can't really say that that would qualify for me, especially if they have some sort of distinguishing feature, like an alternate design on the back, that clearly identifies them as third party, which all of the reputable sellers of such cards require. Speaking of kitchen table, that's the only place where these should be. Any sanctioned event, including casual ones, can only use authorized game cards released by Wizards of the Coast. Basically, if you're getting pairings from Companion, or if you have an official judge, they're not allowed. Interestingly, this is one of the only parts of policy that doesn't seem to have a basis in any practical gameplay or tournament-related issues that might arise if it was removed. I can't think of any reason why this policy exists at all other than, well, the obvious. Okay, so if those aren't officially considered proxies, then what are? Is it those cards that you can use if you're playing double-faced cards without completely opaque sleeves? Well, again, technically no. Those are officially called substitute cards, and they behave a lot like proxies with an important difference. That being that players can issue these proxies themselves. There's a lot of interesting discussion comparing these substitute cards to proper proxies, including how much of the difference is substantive and how much is merely philosophical. But that's a little bit outside of the scope of what I'm talking about today. So let's get on to the actual definition of proxies. What are proxies officially? Well, they work just like substitute cards. A head judge can designate a proxy card, and it stands in for another card in a player's deck and hand. Once the proxy card enters a public zone, then the original card takes its place. This probably sounds pretty familiar, right? Officially issued proxies work basically the exact same as those other examples that we went over, but with one important difference. Players cannot unilaterally make proxies by themselves. Only the head judge can issue a proxy. I'm certain part of the reason for this is so that we don't see players who don't want to put any wear and tear on their cards showing up to events with their entire decks proxied, which is sadly something that I could easily see happening if there weren't a specific rule against it. But I think the main reason is that the actual circumstances where it's appropriate to issue a proxy are pretty unusual, so it's only natural that the head judge should be looped in. So, when can the head judge issue a proxy? The general idea is anytime that an otherwise legal card can no longer be included in a deck without being marked. There's two specific situations that are called out in the MTR. One is when a card becomes excessively damaged or worn during the course of a tournament. This also applies to damaged or misprinted sealed product that's used in limited events. So if you open a booster during a pre-release and all the cards are crimped, you would still be able to play with those cards, but proxies would be issued so that it would not be possible to tell which cards they were from the back. Issuing proxies is preferable to replacing a damaged pack because the latter option changes the cards in a player's pool. It's easy to imagine a player arguing that a particularly desirable card isn't really damaged in order to retain access to it, or overstating the damage on an undesirable one in the hopes of getting it replaced if this policy didn't exist. This policy also covers cases where a card becomes damaged during the course of a tournament. For example, especially if a player isn't using sleeves, certain types of shuffling can potentially cause a card to end up creased, thus marking it. Or a spill or similar incident could cause a card to become warped. Unfortunately, only cards that are damaged during the course of a tournament are eligible to be proxied, and any proxied issued last only the duration of the tournament, meaning that if your card starts out too damaged to play, you would not be able to use this rule to play it. If the head judge determines that the card was damaged by its owner either intentionally or through negligence, that would be grounds for denying a request for a proxy also. The other reason that a judge can issue a proxy is for a foil card where no non-foil printings exist. This policy was written after a certain high-profile legacy tournament shortly after Kess Dissident Mage was found to be playable in the format. At the time, the only printing of this card was as a foil from the Commander 2017 precons, and due to the high heat and humidity in the convention center, basically every copy was warped enough to be considered marked. This policy came up again in Standard after Wizards decided to print Nexus of Fate as the buy a box promo for Core Set 2019. This foil printing was the only way that you could get this card because for some reason, Wizards thought it would be a good idea to have a card that was legal in Standard, but not available in booster packs. Fortunately, it seems that Wizards has cottoned on to the fact that as cool as foils are, there's some logistical reasons why foil-only printings are not a good idea. With the reprint of Kess in Modern Horizons and Nexus of Fate in an upcoming Secret Lair, it looks like we'll be putting... Wait, seriously? They couldn't have even put it in one of the Secret Lairs that looks like actual Magic cards? I try and keep it professional for these videos, but there's a limit. Anyway, one common misconception among players is that if you're playing one of these cards, the rules say you need to get a proxy for it. That's not strictly true, but I can see how some ideas like this could get started. Technically, if the card isn't warped enough to be marked, you can play it just fine. From a practical viewpoint though, if a judge disagrees with your assessment that it's fine to play, the penalty for marked cards could be as severe as a game loss, so yeah, it is better to play it safe. So, what do these proxies look like? Well, there's no specific method for issuing them called out in the MTR. It just needs to be conspicuously called out as a proxy. I've always seen it done the same way, but it's possible that this could be a regional thing. If anyone is familiar with any differences with how judges do this in other regions, definitely let me know in the comments. For me, I always take a basic land, if possible one that's a color not played in the player's deck, and I write the name of the card that's being proxied on it, as well as signing and dating it. The purpose of signing it is so that players and judges can confirm that the head judge actually did authorize this proxy. The purpose of dating it is because proxies are only authorized for the duration of that tournament, so this keeps players from thinking that they can turn around and play it in another event. Recall that proxies, once authorized, are good for the duration of the tournament, so if it is a multi-day event, then you should be fine with the same proxy for both days. Confirming this with the head judge ahead of the second day is not a bad idea though. Another practical consideration is that if you get deck checked while you have a proxy in your deck, it might be a good idea to mention that to the judge. In principle, the deck check team should be aware of the proxy and how to handle it, but sometimes these sorts of things fall through the cracks. This is another reason why only the head judge can create proxies. Because any abnormalities during a deck check are likely to make their way to the head judge, it makes it easier to confirm that the proxies are legitimate. And that's all you need to know about proxies. What they are, what they aren't, a little bit of history behind the policy surrounding them, and a little bit of practical advice if you ever find yourself playing one. If you have any other questions that I didn't address here, be sure to leave a comment and I'll do my best to get to them as much as I can. Thank you again to all of my wonderful supporters on Patreon, along with anyone who supports this channel in any way. But that's all I have for you today. How did you do? Join me again next time for another daily ruling, but until then, I hope you have a great day.